New year, but we're still going strong right here at Sports Talk. Welcome in, everybody, to the first Sports Talk of 2019. As always, I'm your host, Nicolo Manzo, taking you through the world of sports. And Sports Talk, the podcast where we talk sports, is edited by Emily Scholl. So what are we going to talk about in the first edition of Sports Talk 2019? Well, we're going to talk about a couple things. We're going to hit on the Super Bowl, which just happened recently, so we'll talk about that. And I'll give you my take on the trade deadline, some of the bigger trades and non-trades that happened, and what I think that means going forward for some of the teams in the playoff picture and the franchise's future and all that. But first, we're not going to waste any time. We're going to get right into it. Super Bowl 53 happened just recently. A couple Sundays ago was the New England Patriots, AFC champions, against the Los Angeles Rams, NFC champions. And boy, I'll tell you what, this game I don't think turned out like anyone thought it was going to. I know I thought the Patriots were going to win, but I would never have told you 16 points. I actually probably liked the over in that game, to be honest with you. I mean, I thought all the way with the Patriots, I said, as people are asking me from the beginning of the playoffs, Nicolo, who do you think is going to, come out of the AFC? I said, I really think the Patriots are coming out of the AFC again. You can mark that down, and, you could ask anybody that I talk to about that. I just think it's tough to bet against them, but, 13-3, I don't think anybody saw that coming, an incredibly low-scoring game, so we'll break that down. But first, what more can you say? The game was what it was. A lot of people were disappointed in it. We got all the reactions after, ESPN's Trey Wingo went on a little rant of his own about everybody who was complaining, and I'll give you my take on that as well. But a low-scoring game, the lowest ever in Super Bowl history. Not a lot did happen in the game. I will say, there's nothing wrong with a defensive game, but here's the bottom line. It was a little bit of a boring game. It was kind of boring. If that was a regular season game, I don't think anybody would have kept watching it, really. It was just that it was the Super Bowl. And it really wasn't that it was incredibly great defense, like people said either, which I don't know if I totally agree with that, because the defense has to get the job done no matter what. But that's kind of what people were saying. It was bad offense, not great defense. I give a lot of credit to the defense, but overall, it was just kind of not a lot happened in the game. It felt like, there really wasn't a lot going on. So anyway, 13-3, though, New England was the final in that game. If you look at the stats and the numbers, early on, Brady threw the interception. That kind of maybe had something to do with the lack of scoring as the game went on. And then, Goff threw an interception late. So both teams only had the one turnover pick each from their quarterbacks. The Goff ball was pretty bad. He threw that one real short, and that gave the Patriots some momentum as the Rams were driving, and the Pats were able to pick them off. And then, again, I think that the big storyline here is just that the Patriots, again, just coming up big when they absolutely need to, when their back is against the wall, and Tom Brady leading another fourth quarter drive to win a Super Bowl. And that was the difference in the game. The Patriots running game had another good night, 94 yards on the ground for Michel and 43 for Burkhead, and then there was a few other people who carried the ball once or twice, but those were the main workhorses. There was Michel and Burkhead, and of course Michel had the lone touchdown of the game mid to late in the fourth quarter, which made it 13-3 and sealed the deal for the Pats. A lot about this game wasn't precise or really top-notch football. There were some miscues on special teams, both kickers missing field goals, like I said before, the interceptions, and just the inability really to put points on the board turned a lot of people off. But you got to give the Patriots credit where credit is due, and you got to give Tom Brady credit where credit is due as well. Of course, you got to give the defense credit, but what are the big takeaways from this game? Well, a lot of people have talked about the coaching, that McVay got out-coached, and here's the thing about this. McVay, as great of a coach as he is, was going up against Bill Belichick. And I wrote this in the head-to-head that we did for the Woodward, me and Woodward assistant sports editor Brendan Murphy. We talked a little bit about the game, and in my half of it, I said, whenever you're looking across the field at Bill Belichick, you're the second-best coach that day. And even though McVay is, a great coach, that's just what happened to him. Belichick is, looked at the way he is for a reason. 6 Super Bowls, doesn't come by accident. So McVay is, a guy with not a new guy to the league in terms of head coaching, and bright future ahead of him. So I don't think you make too big of a deal out of the whole coaching thing. I just think that it was Bill Belichick, again, doing what he does, and winning a 6th Super Bowl. So I think the future's bright for the Rams. No reason to panic there. The quarterback situation was brought up. People are going to be ready to be maybe hitting the panic button on Goff. I think that they're saying that, he works well in McVay's offense. That's why he's the way he is. That's something you can monitor going forward, but I don't think it's fair based off of one game to, make a big assumption about him going forward as their quarterback. I fully expect him to be the quarterback there in LA, next season, obviously. And then, moving forward, we'll see what happens. You never know. But I don't think that within that organization, there's a lot of concern. I could be wrong, but I think that, they made it to the Super Bowl with a young quarterback. And I think, that they need to look at it like that. This is a young team, a young coach, a young quarterback, young running back, that they're a young group out there. They got lots of time to grow. And even though this isn't the result they wanted, they made it to the Super Bowl. And they have lots of room to grow. Let's just put it like that. They got lots of potential moving forward. Now, the quarterback play wasn't phenomenal, but other thing here is that if you don't recognize Tom Brady as the greatest of all time now, or the GOAT, then, you either don't like him or are just jealous of the Patriots or something. And if you are, that's fine. And, people might say, oh, Brady, whatever, he's a cheater, he's this, he's that. Listen, here's the bottom line with Brady. 6 Super Bowls doesn't come by accident. 6 Super Bowls doesn't come by. You always get breaks. You need to respect the man. Whether you love him or hate him, I feel as though you need to. When I see greatness, I like to watch greatness, and I root for greatness. And I just think that Brady is the greatest, and I like to watch him work on the field, and I like to, be a part of history. That be able to say that, I was there when Brady won these 6 Super Bowls. And here's the thing about this: the Steelers have 6 Super Bowls. Tom Brady has 6 alone now. He has the most as any other franchise in the NFL by himself. So that's a pretty impressive thing, too. And, it cannot be overstated. Brady is the greatest of all time. And, again, he leads him to another Super Bowl title. And I think that's, the takeaway from it. 6-3 in Super Bowls, 9 Super Bowl appearances, winning 6. That's really just incredible. And you got to take your hats off to them, whether you love them or hate them. That's the way I view it. Some people have been talking about should the Rams even have been in this game. Well, you can't take it away from the fact that they won the game, against the Saints. Saints that have a possession didn't work out for them, in overtime, even though that call was terrible. And obviously, I think the Saints should have been in the game. At that point, I guess, should they have been there or not? That could be debated. But, really, the pass interference call was a travesty, in my opinion. You haven't got my take on that either, but it was a travesty. And the Rams were there, and it just wasn't their night. They were just not quite as good as the Patriots, and I think that's all there was to it. So the other aspects of the Super Bowl, Todd Gurley wasn't used a lot. That's going to be talked about. People are going to say, people are kind of wondering, was he hurt? What was the situation there? Why was he not used? Even though C.J. Anderson was playing good football, Todd Gurley's Todd Gurley. Why is he touching the ball 10 times in the Super Bowl? That could be a little bit of a problem. I think he carried the ball 4 times in the NFC Championship game. There was a lot of concerns about that as well. He carried the ball 10 times and he caught up 1 ball. So in the Super Bowl. So that, again, was an underuse. That could be debated as well. He had 35 yards in the ground, 62 yards of rushing for the Rams to 154 for the Pats. And the run game really was a big part of their winning this Super Bowl. So, again, Patriots just finding ways to win when it matters most. Now, other things going on in the Super Bowl, I think people generally were very disappointed in it. The game itself, people didn't like. The halftime show, people didn't like. And the commercials, people didn't like. So they hit the trifecta this year. But honestly, my take on this is that really it wasn't the best Super Bowl. Really, I understand, there's people who have bigger problems in life than complaining about the Super Bowl. And I get that, you know what I mean? I consider myself fortunate to be able to watch the Super Bowl. Period. But, when Trey Wingo says stuff like that too, I get the counterpoint though that it's the Super Bowl. That's why you watch. You're not just going to shut it off. And I tend to agree more with that side of things, I watched because it was a Super Bowl. If that was a regular season game, would I have kept watching? I can't guarantee you that I would have kept watching. It was a Super Bowl. It's a big deal. It's a big game. You're going to watch because of that. It was a disappointment. I think that's fair to say. Come on. The over-under was what, 57 on the game, 57.5. They scored 16 points. They looked sloppy. It wasn't the best Super Bowl. Let's just say that. But again, you always consider yourself lucky to be able to watch it and be a part of it, but not the best Super Bowl. I think people would agree with that. So I could see both sides, but not the greatest. But in terms just of on the field play. Now, we've talked all about that and all about the Super Bowl. So I think we got that covered pretty well. So now the other thing we're going to talk about this week is the NBA trade deadline and what went on there this week. So there were a lot of trades made, but there were also some non-trades made too. And I think you know who I'm talking about when I say that. Anthony Davis was the big name to be rumored to be moved this deadline, and he wasn't. Markelle Fultz is on the move. Tobias Harris was traded. Marc Gasol was traded. So, a lively deadline, to say the least. We'll start, I guess, we'll save Davis for the end. Let's start with Tobias Harris. So Tobias Harris was dealt to the 76ers. And, that is a big move for them because that gives them a formidable starting 5. Ben Simmons Jimmy Butler, Joel Embiid, Tobias Harris, J.J. Redick. That's a solid group there. The one thing I think with the Sixers is they don't have the shooting that maybe you need to win in the NBA nowadays. Simmons is never going to be, I don't think, pulling up from three, from mid-range too much. His ability is just to be a bigger guy, with an athletic frame, at the top there at the 1 for you, and be able to penetrate, and maybe get some dribble drive going, or some cutting to the basket work, inside out a little bit there. But, the shooting needs to improve probably for them. But, Embiid is becoming a force inside, obviously, top 10 player in the league. Simmons is coming into his own. I think he still needs to find the jumper a little bit more. Butler, is obviously a huge pickup for them. And now Tobias Harris rounds him out. It's interesting because the East is going to be competitive still. You have the Celtics, you have the Raptors, you have the Bucks, you have lots of people in the mix there. But, that move shows me they're going for it. They're going all in, and you got to respect that. Okay. Marc Gasol moving to Toronto. I mean, the way I look at this is it's an upgrade at center for them, over Jonas Valanciunas. They got rid of some other pieces there that maybe people would not have liked to have seen gone if you're a Raptors fan. There was also I've heard talk about a Lowry for Conley trade. Lowry obviously is a big part of that franchise, and his game is a big reason why they have done what they have done. The thing with the Raptors is this, the bottom line is, can they perform in the playoffs? That's the whole thing with them. They haven't been able to achieve the same success in the playoffs they have in the regular season. They're a great regular season team, always either the top team in the East or right at the top. But they haven't quite been able to find that success in the playoffs. LeBron was a thorn on their side for a long time. So when he was on the Cavs, that would seem like always to be a stumbling block for them. Now that he's gone, they could possibly maybe find a way past that. But Gasol, the way I look at it is an upgrade for you at center. And, I generally like to move for the Raptors. The Grizzlies, again, it's not a bad move for them either. So I think that's a pretty good move across the board. Markelle Fultz being moved. I like this trade for the Sixers, honestly. I think sometimes it's just time to move on. Fultz obviously has potential. That's why he was drafted first overall. But the injury history, and it just seems like he's not, he hasn't shown that explosiveness really. But I think at a certain point you just move on, He's been injured for so long, and they're trying to win right now, and maybe they feel as though he's not an asset to them right at the moment. So, they trade him and get a nice return, honestly. They got some nice draft picks there in that deal. So I think that's a good deal for the Sixers. I actually really do like that deal for them. I applaud them for that one. Now, the last thing we're going to talk about here today, Anthony Davis, and I'm going to be having a commentary, or maybe by the time this airs, the commentary will already be out about Anthony Davis. But, I don't get, there was whole Laker drama and stuff like that, but I really think that, the Pelicans, when somebody tells you that, I want to be traded, I have no intentions of playing here, signing an extension, you got to do everything that you can to move that player, especially with the extra year of control. You're going to get a higher return, and I just think you should have tried to trade him immediately in this deadline. Now, the Lakers' offer was a great offer. I mean, if we're being honest, the Lakers may have possibly screwed themselves up in the process too, because the chemistry seems like it could be a little bit broken there with, you saw the infamous picture now of LeBron sitting a couple seats away from everybody else on the bench. But if this deal was the way that it was, and if the offer was on the table that I read, there's rumors Lakers may have pulled it back or what have you, but if the offer was there, the Pelicans should really have looked to take that offer, because that was kind of, in my opinion, a crazy offer in the first place. The Lakers should not have been giving up that much for Davis, but I think these teams need to play a little bit hardball with the Pelicans and tell them, listen, this guy doesn't want to play for you anymore, so we're going to give you something for him because of his greatness, but we're not going to give you everything. Because, other teams have the leverage here. If the Pelicans don't trade him, then they're going to get nothing for him, and he's going to walk away, and they're going to be left with nothing. So I respect Anthony Davis also for telling him that he wants to leave and that he wants to be traded, because to me that gives them an opportunity to get something in return for him. But, I don't understand really how, I really think that the Pelicans should have done everything they could have to move this man at the deadline this year, because you can maximize his value now. And I don't see what purpose it serves to have a guy that obviously doesn't want to be there anymore, still playing for your team, when it's just pretty much an inevitability that he's going to leave or that he's going to be traded. So I would have liked to have seen them try to, trade this guy. And if the Lakers weren't willing to give them everything they wanted, or everything that was in that offer rumored to be, then they should have taken a piece of that and been happy, because, the Lakers were offering a lot of nice pieces there and some nice draft picks. And I guess I'm just surprised that Anthony Davis is still in a Pelicans uniform, because it seems like so many teams wanted him, and, it's obvious he doesn't want to be in New Orleans anymore. So I just don't get why you wait. I don't get why, when a guy doesn't want to be there anymore, why you're prolonging the inevitable. I think it's bad for everybody. I think it's bad for the Pelicans. I think in the Lakers' perspective, it could have messed up some team chemistry there. So I guess I'm just surprised to see that Anthony Davis is still a Pelican and don't really understand it because he could have helped somebody, that's trying to get to the playoffs or trying to win a championship. And now we have a lame duck Anthony Davis period in New Orleans. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So that's where I stand on that. All right, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to the first episode of Sports Talk of the 2019 year. We got lots of exciting things coming up on Sports Talk this year. We're going to have lots of nice episodes. We're going to be talking about lots of different stuff. And I look forward to giving you my takes all semester long. And as always, thank you very much for listening. I will see all of you on the next episode of Sports Talk.